Okay, let's get started. Good afternoon, everyone. Thanks for joining us today with Rebel Advocates, Advancing Minds, Advocating Change, Diversity, and Inclusion for Women in the Workplace. We have a wonderful guest today in Justice Abbi Silver. First, let me recognize UNLV Alumni President Stacy Purcell, I believe is on the call. And I want to say I appreciate Stacy's enthusiasm and focus that she has brought to the alumni board and what we're hoping to accomplish as alums. We're out in our various professions and bringing something back to our school. That's what our advocacy committee is about. It's about advocating for things that are important to the university and the alumni association, and this can take us in a whole lot of different places, not just legislatively, local government, but also business-wise and things that will have an effect of the student body. We want to also bring in more undergrads before they actually graduate and get out to the world and get them engaged with UNLV. Also, during the question and answer period, we've got Shani Coleman, who will be doing the questioning and answers portion with Justice Silver. And I will be peeling off, as this is National Women's Month. And so all the contributions and everything that women have made to our nation and our state to date have long been, overlooked. And I think Justice Silver and Shani Coleman and others that you'll come in contact that are also on this board highlight these successes and the potential of our board. So without much further ado, I'd like to introduce everyone to Justice Abbi Silver. I first met Justice Silver when she was on Muni courts, and I was a young attorney practicing criminal law. And I've watched her career. She moved up and through the appellate division all the way up now to the state Supreme Court. She's a wonderful judge, does her homework, and is, in my view and watching Justice Silver's career, has not only been cognizant of her role wearing the robe up there for the parties who come seeking redress, but she's also has been interested in outside efforts in our community where she lives. And on a personal note, she even had one of my assistants when I was the majority leader in the legislature, Brittany Shipp, clerked for her. And now Brittany is the city attorney in Boulder City. That's just one small example of Abbi nurturing generation coming up behind her. So with that, thank you for joining us, Justice Silver. I look forward to hearing your remarks and the question and answer period. And I'll turn it over to Shani Coleman.
Wonderful, wonderful. Very excited to be with everybody today and having the Honorable Justice Silver with us. Justice Silver, do you want to go over a little bit of your background and, let us know how you got into public service? What led you to the wonderful career of law and judgeship?
Oh my gosh. Okay. So that's a big question. The law, I love to talk. So that was easy. I get paid to talk. What better occupation for somebody like me? But I grew up in Boulder City. So it's really neat that Brittany ended up becoming the city attorney out there. Grew up in Boulder City, but I did move to Vegas, went to Clark High School, graduated 82. And then of course I went to UNLV my 4 years. I graduated poli-sci major 86. Dr. Dina Titus and Dr. Jerry Simich wrote my recommendations into law school. So I like to tell both of them that I'm their most famous student. I like to say that to them. And I went to Southwestern. We had no law school here. We didn't have a Boyd back in the 80s. So unfortunately, I had to go somewhere else. And then I came back. I clerked for a district court judge for a year as a judicial law clerk. I spent 14 years at the Clark County District Attorney's Office, where I was the chief of the Special Victims Unit. And ultimately, I became a judge, municipal court, justice court, district court. I was selected as the inaugural member of 3 judges on the Nevada Court of Appeals, first female chief of the Nevada Court of Appeals for 2 years. And currently I sit as a justice for the Nevada Supreme Court. I know working for Judge White in 1989, when my first year out, I saw what he did and I just thought, wow, I want to be a judge one day. And that's how it worked.
That's absolutely amazing and awesome, especially, as we celebrate Women's History Month, and we look to all of the wonderful women that we have in our state and in our local governments. I am blessed. And I've had the opportunity to work for local government and be on the ground and be able to support people. And as a woman, I found it absolutely rewarding. Some of the work that I do is around economic development and helping people, but the ability to help other women and support other women through public service. So we in Nevada have had a lot of historic firsts in this state. Last legislative session, we had one of many throughout the country, but female-led legislatives, and I just thought that was completely awesome. We got a lot of national attention about that. I think it's important that we talk, that we support women and we talk about women. And on today's Zoom, we're just going to talk, a little bit about, some of the things that may be important as maybe a small mentoring session, I should say, that we'll have today. So as a woman going through the having a legal career and moving up as you did, what are some of the things that you have found significant about, or maybe different than being a man moving through those same ranks?
Well, I have a couple stories that I brought with me for today of how it's changed. Mine are specific to the legal profession, obviously, because I became an attorney in the late 80s. And when I became an attorney, I was 24. I had really big 80s hair, really long, really big, and I was 24. You didn't see too many 24-year-old female lawyers. And as a result, I had been working for a very large law firm for my second and third year in law school. And I wanted to work for, a judge. I wanted to put my resumes out. And when I did, one judge in particular asked me to be his law clerk. And I remember all the partners at the firm said, don't you dare be his law clerk, because everybody will think that you slept with that judge. Mm-hmm. And I say this because nobody would ever say that to a male. Right. Nobody would have said this to a 24-year-old male. I was married, happily married at 24. And not that it would have mattered. What if I wasn't married? Who cares? Right. But they said it to me as a woman. Don't go work for that particular judge. Well, I didn't, because I had worked so hard. The last thing I wanted people to think was that I somehow slept my way to my position. And that's really what happened in the late 80s. Right. And so I ended up working for a wonderful judge. Nobody thought that, thank God. And I want to also go to when I first would walk in the courtroom, my first couple of years as a deputy district attorney, I was the prosecutor. I'd walk in, of course, I'm wearing a suit, but unfortunately I was young with the big 80s hair. And everyone would walk up to me with their card and hand it to me and say, take this down. You know what that meant, right? They thought I was the court reporter.
Oh.
Always the court reporter. And I would have to give them their card back and say, I'm sorry, but I'm the prosecutor. And no deals to your client. No, I'm kidding. I didn't.
Right. They should be very scared at this point because they insulted you. Right.
Yeah. Not help the client much. I'm not just kidding.
Right.
But it's unfortunate because I really feel like I did, as a female, I had to work twice as hard, 10 times as hard to show that I was this tough prosecutor, that nobody would have done that with the males in our office. They would have assumed when they walked in a suit that they were the attorney on the other side.
Right.
Okay. So I only say that because these are some of the things I went through in the late 80s, early 90s as a young lawyer. And what's changed now, as you've alluded to in our discussions, is that now, I mean, the vast majority of faces on the bench are female.
Mm-hmm.
And it's no longer, I mean, it may be a majority, it's at least a 50-50 split on males and females in the courtroom as far as the attorneys go. So nobody's shocked when a female walks in with long hair and a suit, that that's the attorney. It just doesn't happen anymore. But it did take 33 years or so for this change to have occurred with our attitudes. And so I'm very happy that it has changed. I still feel that we still have some work to do. It's not over. You know, right. I mean, hashtag Me Too was just what, a couple of years ago. We still have a lot of work to do in a lot of different fields. But I am happy to say that we really have come a long way in the legal field as far as what I had to endure in the beginning.
Right. So as speaking of, you know, your experience as a young attorney and going through those things, what tips or thoughts could you share with today's young attorneys or just young women professionals in general that you think are valuable?
I do have some tips. I say make friendships with strong women or strong men too. Strong mentors in your workplace is a really important thing. I'm going to give you a really great story, and that it's a UNLV story too, so everybody should like this. When I went to UNLV, I was a junior, and I was in a journalism class, and they said there's going to be a newscaster or news reporter, and there's going to be an attorney that's going to come talk to you about, you know, careers. And I did the same thing as everybody else in the 80s. Here comes a man in a suit. I assumed that that was the attorney. And then here came this beautiful blonde young woman in her 20s. Again, long hair. I think she was wearing an emerald green suit. Beautiful. I assumed she was a newscaster. Well, I was wrong, just like everyone else. That was UNLV alumni, and not only alumni cheerleader for UNLV, Nancy Osterley. And if you know Nancy, I mean, she talked and I thought, oh my God, I want to be just like her. And I grabbed her after class. I started talking to her, and I was just a junior at UNLV. And she just blew me away. I just thought she was the best thing since sliced bread, really. Right. So fast forward, I get through law school. I become a law clerk with Judge White, or a White Jr., and she came to see me. She was a deputy district attorney with Clark County DA's office at the time. And when she came and talked to me, she was a prosecutor. And she was like, I'll help you, whatever you need. Well, ironically, I became, within the next year, a deputy district attorney. And I ended up working with Nancy at the DA's office. And she became one of my closest friends and mentors. So she helped me with my first closing argument in a rape case. I didn't know what I was doing. Thank God I had her sitting there helping me write that closing argument. Then every time I would come up from court with a horrible story about, oh my gosh, I was treated so bad. I would be crying. I was treated poorly. I can't believe that, you know, somebody did this to me. She always had a story worse than me about how she was treated as a female. And I I laughed because somehow that made me feel better. Like her story would make me feel better. Like, oh, my story wasn't so bad. And she made me feel so good. And so it was great to hear these stories from this female mentor. Ultimately, she rose to the Justice Court bench in 1992. And do you know, in 2007 to 2009, I sat with Nancy Osterly on the Justice Court bench as well. So we were DAs together, we were judges together. She still is my great friend and mentor, but it just goes to show you how important it is to have those kinds of relationships with people in the workplace and mentors, because you'll never forget all the support that they give to you. And I think that's a really important tip. When you admire somebody, really take in all of their advice and counsel and remember that.
Yeah. I think mentorship is such an important topic, and I'm glad that you actually brought that up, and you've spoken to how important it is. Do you have any thoughts on how both women can be engaged in being a mentor, and then for women who maybe have may have trepidation about being a mentor to somebody, and then also maybe for those who may want to be a mentee but aren't really sure or thinking about it? And because I think that's a positive story. I'd like to explore that a little bit more.
I think, I mean, again, whether it's male or female, it doesn't matter. I've had wonderful male mentors throughout. Another one was Bill Coote, and he was an Alumni of the Year in 2001. He was one of my greatest mentors at the District Attorney's Office. So again, it doesn't matter. If you feel comfortable though with somebody, you should really seek out their advice to be the best that you can be. And as far as mentors, you can never mentor enough people. I constantly, everybody knows this, they all call me, it's okay, you can. They all call me for externships, law clerk positions, and I always give back I have over 70 students of UNLV, both undergrad and graduate, that have been my externs and have been my law clerks. And I'm Jewish, and in the Jewish religion, it's called a mitzvah. When you do good deeds, you get closer to God. And so it's a mitzvah to help somebody, and you become somebody so important in their life. It's just so important to do.
No,
pay it forward.
Yeah, I think that's absolutely wonderful. So, everybody on the call, think about being a mentor. Our Alumni Association has some programs available. Think of your old college divisions that maybe you participated in. I know I've seen them come across from the College of Business. I know Boyd Law School has opportunities to be a mentorship, not just for women, but for everybody. But I think it's especially important for women as we continue to grow in all fields in the community, that we support each other as we go through this process. So Justice Silver, what are some of the maybe hardest lessons that you've learned over the years? And what can you share with us?
Well, Eleanor Roosevelt once said that no one can make you feel inferior without your consent. The point is that only other people can make you feel bad about yourself if you let them. You have to let them. And so my advice is to focus on your goals, be steadfast and focus on your goals. Do not listen to the noise. I used to spend nights when I was younger, awake at night, thinking about what people might be saying about me, whether it's rumors, gossip. Law is a competitive field, and there's a lot of different businesses that are competitive and cutthroat. And I say, don't listen to the noise, don't listen to rumors or gossip. So one time I was giving a presentation and I saw two DAs like this, maybe they weren't even talking about me. Maybe they just said, I have to get out of here, I've got a motion to do. But for some reason I felt like, and maybe I was right too, I felt like they were talking about me, and it makes you crazy, it really does. And I give that example because it made me feel bad. And I must have spent nights, like a week, worrying about them making fun of me. Another example is this only took one time. I think I read that law blog, that Las Vegas law blog. Don't read it. No, I'm kidding. Oh my gosh. It was like, I think the year was maybe 2007 or so, but the hate that is in there, I was ugly, I'm fat, I need to change my clothes, I need to change my hairstyle, put on some makeup, I'm dumb. It was horrible. And these are not constructive criticisms. These are anonymous haters in the back, And so when I step outside myself, right, I mean, I thought I was going to need to go to therapy or something. I couldn't believe somebody hates me that bad. Like, what did I do to anybody to deserve this type of hate?
Right.
But my point is this: if I have teenage daughters, if my daughters had said that, and I step outside myself, and they said to me that somebody had talked about them on a social media like that, what would we say to our daughters or our best friends? We would say, these are haters. We would say that they're jealous of you. You're an accomplished person. You're thoughtful. You work hard. And we'd say, don't listen to the noise. Stay focused on your goals. They're not worth your time. And so I bring that story up because as embarrassing as a story like that is on social media, we can't let that, drive our course. If I listen to every person or naysayer that thought, I read somewhere once on the blog, oh, she wants to be Supreme Court, who does she think she is? That's blonde ambition, or that's dumb ambition. Well, what if I'd listened to that? And because I thought about it, like, am I that smart to be on the Supreme Court? Well, of course I am. Of course, anybody, in law school or who wants it we're in America. We all have an opportunity. But to have somebody sit there and say that about you, if you believe it in yourself, then you're not going to go do it, right?
Right.
And if you disregard the noise, if you focus on your goals, if you stay with positive people that love you and bring you up and keep you positive and believe in you, you believe in yourself, you will accomplish those goals. Absolutely. So a big lesson is don't listen to the noise and focus on your goals. You can achieve them.
Awesome. So, I mean, you mentioned that you've had teenage daughters and this is what you would tell them. What would you tell your younger self now that you've gone through these experiences? What would you, if you had the opportunity to go back and talk to your younger self now, as your experience, what would you say?
Well, I would say everything I just said about focus on your goals. But then the kind of funny side of me would say, oh, you're good. You can do it. You're good. You got nothing to worry about. But I didn't know that at the time. But that brings me to something about knowing about myself, which is fear. So fear is a good thing. It's not a bad thing. Fear is what will drive you to hit your goals. Because if you think about it, I'm relentless. I am an A personality. I always will keep trying until I achieve my goal. So if I didn't have that fear and being scared of doing something, I wouldn't be the person that I am today. So the anxiety and the fear of failure and being like, oh my gosh, failing is what pushed me to be my best. It's okay to be scared. It's okay to be scared to start a new job, to take an examination, to take the bar exam, to do your first closing argument, to run your first campaign, to run any campaign. The things that you are petrified to do are the things that will drive you. You have to overcome it. Like Nike, just do it. Once you have overcome that fear and you have done what you feared, you will have a great sense of the accomplishment and you can set forth to conquer your next goal. And so I say, don't be paralyzed in your own fear. You really need to do it. A lot of people just say, oh, I'm not going to do that. I'm scared. And they don't take that chance. You've got to overcome that fear. It's normal. It's okay. Conquer it.
Right. So when you made the decision to leap from being an attorney to a judge, what was kind of that thought process? What went through your mind? Was it kind of that bold ambition that that's so obvious in you, or give us a little bit of insight into your thought process?
Oh my goodness. Well, I think I was really tired after 14 years of picking juries as an attorney. And it was living the life as a trial attorney is one of the hardest professions that you could ever pick, because every weekend, especially for DAs and public defenders or private attorneys out there in criminal, you're always in trial. And so to me, and I always try my best, right? And so with special victims unit, it was a murder case or it's a rape case. There's always so much on the line, so much pressure to be a trial attorney and to win, not just to win, but if you lost, maybe that abused child goes back into an abusive, sexually abusive home. If you lost a murder case, again, perhaps somebody who deserved, who murdered somebody would walk free. There's a lot of pressure. And so I was exhausted from the pressure. And I think that it was a great transition for me to use all of my experience and the wisdom that I had gained through being a trial attorney to sit as a trial judge, and to use that to perhaps go a different direction, a different dimension. And
Right.
again, I was a law clerk my first year, and I got to watch my judge, and I was always so proud of him and everything that he did. I just thought he was amazing. So for me, it was just the epitome of where I was going to go with my career. I was really excited to do it. I still am.
That's wonderful. So if you had to pick one or the other, which would you say was more fulfilling for you, being the attorney or being the judge?
There's no question that being the chief, being special victims unit was the most fulfilling job I've ever had. When you bring little ones back to talk to you, children of all ages or teenagers or young women and men, and they have been victimized, and you can see that in their eyes and the tears and the feelings, and having to go through that entire court process with them as their advocate, as their voice, and bringing them justice and seeing that at the end of a verdict, that I don't think there's anything that could be more fulfilling than that job, more heartfelt. And those are all the things that stayed with me my entire life. But on the other hand, I will say that even though it's maybe not as fulfilling, that you still have an opportunity as a judge, especially in the lower courts. When I say lower courts, I'm talking about when I was municipal or justice court. You work a lot with pro ses and people that have never been in the court system. And if you're able to make a difference with them too, whether it's, really showing them how, catastrophic their choice was, that you can turn it around. I've gotten letters too from people that said, "You were my judge, but I thank you so much for putting me in the right direction as well." So that can be quite fulfilling as well.
Wonderful. I mean, you touched on, being in the special victims unit. Do you think being a woman really gave you an advantage in dealing with some of those victims and some of the cases, and maybe even as a judge, as you sit on certain cases, do you think that being a woman provides you with an advantage?
Well, that's a great question. And I have a lot to say about that, because when I started in 1990 at the DA's office, my first case that was handed to me on a Friday for a Monday trial was a rape case. And she was a young female. None of the men wanted it in the office because they were doing gangs and robberies and murders, and they didn't want those pesky rape cases. Those were, not for them. And so I took it, and the young woman came into my office on a Sunday night. She was 18. And I've never had a victim do this but her. She threw up in my office describing what happened to her. I believed in her, tried the case. After the verdict, I got up, and it was a pivotal point in my life because I had studied all bankruptcy and corporate law. I was going to be a bankruptcy lawyer. And when I walked over to her, she was shaking like a chihuahua shaking. And I hugged her, and she said, "Thank you" to me. "Thank you." And I know it sounds cliche. I've said this, it's absolute truth. I knew when she said thank you to me and I hugged her that I had found my calling in life. I had absolutely known that at that point I was put on this earth to help victims of crime. And that's absolutely, it hit me like boom right there. And it drove my path. And what was interesting is when it came to domestic violence and stalking, none of the guys in the office wanted to do it either. So I wrote the stalking laws. I became the first chief on the domestic violence unit and put together a unit that was no deals. You're violent with somebody, you're going to trial, which was the new law at the time.
Right.
And so it was funny that it's actually because of me being a woman. Yep. It was not cool to be doing those cases, but I had a connection for whatever reason with the most vulnerable people. I just have a lot of empathy for them. And I wanted to be that strong person for them. And I think it was pivotal that I was a woman and I was able to help them. And I could relate, especially to young women. They would say to me, "I can't believe this happened to me." And I think, I'm just lucky that this didn't happen to me. I'm just lucky because we've all put ourselves in all kinds of situations throughout our lives of where we could have been a victim of a crime, but we weren't. And so it's just sheer luck, to be quite frank.
Yeah, you know what? I think, listening to you, you're probably a walking case study on the importance of diversity, right? So as you mentioned,
Thank you.
you were able to have a pivotal impact on how our community deals with rape, how our community deals with stalking laws and things that, like you said, the men didn't want to touch, but for having a strong woman like yourself in that position, we would not have some of the protections that we have today. So thank you for your public service and your work and all of those things. So I want to shift the conversation a little bit because I know you mentioned that you had children, and regardless of the strides that we as women have made in the community, we are still the primary caregivers of children, and you've had a very successful career, right? And so can you talk a little bit about how you balance or how you create work-life balance? I mean, like I said, you're at the pinnacle of legal profession as a Supreme Court judge, but seems like you still have a family, and I'm guessing based on your personality, they're probably strong women, probably just like you are. So, anything you can, anything you can share with the audience on that work-life balance that you created with raising your children?
Well, for anyone in any occupation, there's nothing more important than your family. For me, I think that work is important always. Everybody's work's important, but at the end of the day, there's nothing like your family and your friends and your support. You have to have that balance of friendships and your family that keep you together, because all work and no play, and I'm just really lucky that I have a great husband that has also really stepped in as a partner that has helped raise my children with me and allowed me to shine in my career. So no matter what I do, as far as we have all kinds of events, well, before COVID, to go to at night.
Yeah.
When they were little, he might watch them, or not, or come with me. But I've been really lucky to have somebody that, my friends all say, wow, if a male judge had this kind of spouse, they'd be like, wow, they're off the chain. They take care of the kids with being this great wife. And I can tell you that I have that in reverse. I am that lucky. He's an awesome father and an awesome husband that really has been, has allowed me over this 20 years to be, to really become what I have become.
Right.
I just couldn't have done it without my family.
That's absolutely amazing. Awesome. So you're at the pinnacle of your legal career, but you are still very, very young.
I'm 56.
Yeah, that's still very, very young.
Thank you.
Have you given any thought to what's next for Justice Silver after the Supreme Court? Anything that you're willing to share?
Honestly, I feel like, I mean, what more can I do at this point? It's, I think I finally hit my goal, and which is weird, to be honest, because I've always had a goal. There's always been one further thing I'm going to do.
Right.
But there is nothing, there really isn't. This is really it for me as far as my career, right? I just don't see myself going anywhere but, you know, at some point retiring, being a retired judge.
Yeah.
I'm not, I've worked really hard and I'm really happy with, I'm just blessed and I'm just enjoying what I've got. Super blessed.
Right. Well, that's awesome. Justice Silver, thank you so much for sharing your thoughts with us today. I want to open it up to the audience and see if the audience has any questions for Justice Silver. She's so insightful and she's so successful, and I think there's lots that we can learn from this conversation. She's already shared so much with us, but please, if there are questions from the audience. Let's see. I see some in the chat. Let's see if I can find something. Some comments.
Oh, I see a friend of mine, Kathy Schwer's out there. Hi, Kathy. Kathy and Joe Schwer's are friends of mine, and she put a little nice comment.
Yeah. So a question from our president, Stacy Purcell. I'm a big advocate for women of diversity and love to see them thrive. What advice would you give to leaders across the board to support and increase relationships and rapport building?
That's a great question. Whoops. I don't know what I did there. Sorry, I need to click that up. That's a great question. One of my biggest pieces of advice would be to stay humble, to listen to others. What we do, for example, in the appellate court is there's 7 of us, and when we sit in conference together, each justice comes with just, they're very, very smart, a lot of wisdom, a lot of experience. And it's very important that we sit and we're open and we listen to each one's opinion on a case. And we can sometimes have 7 different opinions, you can imagine. But it's amazing to listen how people's experiences and what their interpretation of the law is, etc. And then you may have come in with a certain opinion of how you were going to rule on a certain case. But after being open and listening to other people, people are able to persuade you to accept their point of view, and perhaps you go with it. This happens all the time in the appellate court, not just for me, it happens to each justice. We all have done this where we've walked in thinking one thing and we have flipped our vote based on what somebody else has to say. And this also goes for attorneys too in oral argument. We may walk in thinking that we've read everything and this is how we're going to rule, but then we listen to the arguments and we're open and we may flip our point of view. And so I do think it's very important. You know, you don't want to be that know-it-all bossy person. You want to stay humble. Being humble and listening to people, you learn and you are likable. And so it's just a big part of communication is to sit back and listen before perhaps making a big decision.
Right. And if I remember correctly, when you were assigned to the appellate court, you were the only woman?
In the inaugural court of appeals,
in the inaugural?
there were 3. And so there were 2 men and myself,
You
correct.
were the only woman. And now you sit on a Supreme Court.
And by the way, I was the most organized. I'm not going to
Yeah.
lie.
I believe it.
I don't know what's going on there, but I was the most organized for sure.
Yeah.
And, I think, well, I'm just going to say it. Women multitask. You said that. I can tell you when my kids' tennis practice is, as well as when I need to be at a meeting. But I just like to, I think it was kind of funny.
Yeah.
Because the others were like herding kittens.
Yeah. So you were the only woman on the inaugural appellate court.
Mm-hmm.
And then now you sit on a Supreme Court that is a majority woman bench.
Yeah.
Can you talk about, are there differences in that dynamic that you can share with us?
This is gonna sound funny. It's better. No, I'm kidding. More organized. No, I'm kidding. You know what? Every court is great, and each court has its dynamic and personalities. It's just so fun. This court. Whether it's women and men, it doesn't matter. I mean, the men on the court are awesome. And we just had a switch out where Justice Gibbons left, Justice Herndon came on, and boy, am I lucky. I just work with some great people. They're so nice. They're very open. They're so smart. And it's really, it's super fun. I couldn't have asked for more. It's just a great court. But I don't know. I just think it's the people. I don't know if it matters, at least with the gender on this.
Okay. So we have a question from the audience from Jen. Her question is, how do you balance moments of toughness or leadership that may result in moments of your colleagues claiming you're not nice?
That's daily. I don't think my colleagues do. I think I think when I was on the trial courts, it's a fact that I think it's a fact. You could tell litigants when they're in the heat of the moment, counsel, here's how I'm ruling and rule. And it can come off very differently from a female saying that from a male. I mean, I've heard some male be what I consider kind of mean. Mm-hmm. And people are like, well, he's respectful. He's dignified. He's this and that. And that's not the same adjectives you get for women on the bench. Right. You know, it's just not. I won't say the adjectives, but you know what I'm talking about. And that again is something that society, we need to really make an effort to change that attitude.
Right.
But I'll tell you, as women on that bench, on that particular bench, on the trial bench, we all talked about it. We all felt it. We knew it was happening.
Right.
I don't think it happens at the appellate level with the litigants. I think we all are, we're Supreme Court, so we're all getting that respect. But I did feel it on the trial bench for sure, in the lower courts.
How do you deal with?
But my colleagues, no, I don't.
Yeah. How do you, as a woman judge, because to me it would be stupid to disrespect or insult the judge who is, that's hearing your case, whether lower level or whether, appellate or Supreme Court. How would you, in your leadership role, handle that?
Well, it's always the underlying party. At the end of the day, these people are representing a party. And so you would never hold anything against. You may dislike an attorney and not really admire the way that attorney comes across in court, and you would do it differently. But at the end of the day, we base obviously our decisions on the law and what's before us on the record, despite what we may think that attorney's great or not so great or whatever. You do remember, though, if somebody is deceptive or misrepresents a case, right? That's not good, because you always want to make sure as the attorney, and when I was the attorney, that court, they expected credibility from the attorneys. And in Nevada, you have a long career here. I saw Leanne Lee was saying I was her father was an attorney that I used to go against. And what I said to her is, my goodness, Benson Lee is your father. What a wonderful attorney. He was a pleasure to be in court. He was always professional. He always treated me well. And isn't that a wonderful thing for me to say after 30 something years of practicing with him? That speaks volumes for his professionalism. And your reputation follows you. So it's very important to always be professional all the way through your career, because people do remember. If you're a judge, you want to be kind to people, because if you're not, they remember that too.
Right. Right.
You want to be professional.
Right. So I know we have our board president, Stacy Purcell, on the line, and also Miss Diana Bennett on the line. And I want to give them an opportunity to ask any questions or share any thoughts that they have if they're interested.
It's Diana, and thank you so much. This has been such a wonderful afternoon listening to you, and so proud of everything that you've done for the Supreme Court of Nevada. And, I've just noticed, and I don't know, maybe I'm more observant this year, but I think we have really celebrated women this month so well here in Nevada. And I'm so proud of everything that we've done to stress the accomplishments. And here in Nevada, our women are outstanding. All of the women that we have in Washington, and you mentioned my dear friend Dina Titus, and we have Susie Lee, and I mean, we could just go on and on. I mean, we are well represented in Washington, and we're well represented in the state legislature and in the Supreme Court. And I'm just so proud to be a very small part of the women that are doing such outstanding work. And I've told Stacy Purcell many times how great the Alumni Association is doing in representing UNLV. So I was thrilled listening to you talking about stories from the 80s. I can tell you about stories from the 70s.
Right.
And all the many things that being a 20-year-old trying to break into the gaming industry. So I know them well, and I'm pleased to think that we've gotten past a lot of that. I know we're not over every bit of it, but we've come a long way. I hope we have a long way to go so that my little granddaughters don't go through what we went through, and that they can stand proud and just stand right up there next to any man that there is, and just be proud of what they stand for, what's in their head, and not worry about all the rest of the nonsense that goes along with it. So I thank you so much for representing Nevada in the way that you have, and it's been a privilege to listen to you today.
Oh my gosh, thank you so much. Thank you so much. I gave you guys the clean versions too. I'm sure, right? I'm sure I gave you guys the cleaner versions of some of this stuff. I'm sure, right, Diana? I mean, we're from Vegas, so there were some not so clean versions. And I knew this was being recorded, so I want to keep it clean.
Wonderful, wonderful.
But I agree. I that's my goal, that our children and grandchildren don't have to go through what we did. They shouldn't have to. They have the same brain as a male. Why are they treated differently in the workplace,
Yeah.
No.
So we have about 10 minutes left.
Jenny, it's Stacy.
Oh, go ahead, Stacy. I apologize. Go ahead, please.
No, I'm in my car. I'm driving, but I just have to tell you, Justice Silver, what an inspirational chat today. I want to say I admire women of influence and power like yourself. You've done so well, and you're born and raised. And, I moved here from Maui in 1988, and I graduated in the heyday of, rebels and winning and cheerleaders and all of that. And, but I feel like, I wish I would have been here back when I was born in 64. I'm 56 years old too, and go through all of that generational as I'm experiencing. And my question about diversity was, because I'm, Puerto Rican, Hawaiian, Chinese, so I support women of all kinds, and, especially women that are struggling. But you look at someone like yourself, like Diana, and you guys are, royalty in your field in hospitality. Diana with her father, and Leanne Lee, go Leanne. I mean, just women across, when you see what they have accomplished, and they say to me as a mentor, now I finally become a leader, and they say, how do you do it? How do you get through the intimidation of people? And just listening to you, everything you said is you just have to be humble. You're so right. And just listen, because the best salespeople that I train, I work for Caesars and we sell conventions, is you have to listen to what the customer's needs are in order to deliver the goods. But you have to be humble at the most elementary state. And I just loved your answer. And you are just, again, inspirational. I echo Diana. And congratulations to William and Shani and Leanne for bringing you on. I'm so thrilled and really proud. I mean, just, you are an inspiration. Thank you so much. And just learned a lot. And, when you see it from the outside, you see you on the billboards, there's intimidation. I got to tell you, your power and all of that. But what you've done is just incredible and amazing. And I salute you. And thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. Oh my gosh, thank you so much. I mean, I really appreciate it.
You've had a wonderful,
Yeah.
I mean, look, you've had an impact just not on our legal community, but also, the community in general. And I can say, from being able to co-host this with William, it was an honor being able to speak with you and ask questions. And so we have a few minutes left. And so there is a question that came in. It's more legal related, but in all of the cases you've weighed in on the Nevada Supreme Court, what do you feel has been the most consequential and will have the longest lasting effect?
Oh my goodness. I think that I just wrote an opinion on a bad acts case. When I say bad acts, it was a murder case, a death penalty case that we reversed, and it was 7-0 on the reversal, but it was on Dateline. Some of you may have seen it, The Widower. And sometimes, I mean, let's face it, TV is fun. And what they put on is not always what is the evidence, et cetera. Right. But what they had put in was a prior acquittal of 25 years before the guy was charged with murder of a prior wife, but it was 25 years before. It was out of Utah, and very different circumstances. And that record was sealed, but right. The prosecutors had put on the prior bad act evidence. So we call that prior bad act evidence. And I do think that, especially having been a prosecutor, and I did that's the cases I did, special right. victims, it was domestic violence into murder. You have to try your case at hand. You have to try the case based on the facts and not other things that are prejudicial, that, it sounds good, but is problematic, like in that particular case. And so I right. think that that's going to get cited to quite a bit. I know that's a criminal case, right. but I think that will be cited to quite a bit, because we went into how it's not favored in the law at all to bring in propensity for right. to show somebody's guilty. And again, that was an acquittal. It was an acquittal. So there's a lot of steps to it. And I do think that will be cited to quite a bit.
Okay.
For that proposition, to try your case on hand. Exactly. Yeah. And I should mention too, I want to put out, I know we talked about Dina Titus, and I know we talked about some other people, but Catherine Cortez Mastos and I were editors of Clark Yearbook. We were editors of Yearbook together, and she's one of my dear friends as well. Just a little known fact as well of Old Vegas.
Yeah, you came up with all the heavy hitters.
yeah, a lot of the judges too. Clark graduates. Kathleen Delaney and I went to school together. Joanna Kishner and I in 10th grade, she's a judge. We wrote in careers class why we wanted to be lawyers together. Oh. And then ultimately we went to law school together. We were roommates in law school. So Joanna and I are great friends. Bert Brown was a Clark graduate, Susan Johnson, a Clark graduate.
Wow.
He was a Western. He's an outlier, Western. But
Western.
yeah. Oh, you went to Western too. Okay.
Yeah.
But yeah. So it's just really neat to see all of these people from way back when that we're all connected. And of
Awesome.
course, UNLV.
UNLV, right? Yeah, big shout out to UNLV Alumni Association, again, for putting this on and giving us the opportunity to chat with you and gather some great information and intel, especially for Women's History Month. Last call on questions. We're a couple of minutes out, and if there are any last minute questions that we have out there, speak now or forever hold your peace.
Not a question, but I just want to say phenomenal job moderating, Shawnee. You asked a lot of great questions. Thank you, Leanne, for getting Justice Silver. Justice Silver, it was so awesome to have you as part of this.
Oh, thank you.
I'm amazed at the caliber of people that we are able to get to speak with you at the top of that list. So very, very great.
Thank you.
Your extremely busy schedule to speak with us and our advocates. So
I've been looking at your backyard or your background, and I'm like, wow, that's pretty awesome.
Yeah, right. I think it's Hawaiian. Helps me escape.
Yeah, I'm escaping through it. I was like, wow, that's a cool background.
Thank you. I
Awesome.
appreciate that.
Well, Justice Silver, thank you again so much for giving us and spending this time with us today. From the heart of the Alumni Association, we appreciate everything that you do for our community. We appreciate you supporting the Alumni Association, and we look forward to working with you in the future.
Oh, thank you. You've got it. My pleasure.
All righty.
Go Reds. Thank
For
you.
everybody else, thank you. Thank you so much for joining us. We'll catch up with you next time. Bye-bye.